very clearly in our mind, right from scratch, we were keen to make this an example of high quality engagement of a whole city. We wanted to use this as an example, as a marker of the way you could actually work with major events coming to town, and how do you build the population to be ready for that event.
Well, I think people really enjoy and engage with when you tell their story, and so this has been about telling Brisbane's story, and when you can tell Brisbane's story to the world, that was one of the things that I really wanted to do, was to show off, not only to show off Brisbane when it looks fantastic at night, you know, through lighting, but also telling Brisbane's stories. So the G20 coming to Brisbane on the, you know, on the Parliament House, the changing face of Brisbane, so telling that story of Brisbane on the Treasury Hotel. Andrew Gibbs's amazing, you know, collaboration on the Commissariat store with Richard D'Souza, you know, telling the story of our, you know, rainforest and the reef. So, yeah, I think people have really connected with that and enjoyed it, and that's why it's been successful.
And I think that I wanted to show how this city could rise up to that really disruptive event and just say, oh well, we can handle that, we could handle a flood the year before, we could handle a whole series of things, and when those things happen, we all come together. And art and culture, or this cultural celebration, became the tool to give people a sense of removal of fear, a celebration of our lifestyle, a acknowledgement of the diversity of our city, and all of that built a great sense of pride for Brisbane and in Brisbane. That's what we showed the world. That's the images and the messages that went to the world. We were very keen to showcase things that gave people a sense of themselves in their space, in their time, that drove economic returns, that drove employment opportunities, that really drove a whole lot of community building and community development, so that by the time the big intrusive thing came along, the actual world meeting, we were ready. We could have taken on anything.
You know, like this was the first G20 where there's been a cultural program, you know, and that's hugely significant.
I would like to think that one of the outcomes from that was people saying, well, community engaged practice works, it is effective, it is a way that we can bring people along for the ride.
But when you've got an event like this, the cultural celebrations, that's got that layering and lots of different activities and things to explore, you can become a tourist in your own city.
Athol has done a really stellar job of pulling together what is quintessential Brisbane, what is quintessential Queensland. So for us, Queensland Ballet Theatre actually do a show under the stars on a beautiful, balmy Sunday evening. There's nothing more Queensland than that. So he's really celebrated what it is that's unique about this part of the country.
I think we had a really broad appeal to tourists and visitors for the city, but I think we had a really, really, really deep appeal to people in Brisbane who were actually seeking to have a marker of their identity or a sense of belonging in a city.
The success of the G20 Cultural Celebrations was really about so many people were engaged and so many artists from Brisbane were engaged in the delivery, that people were invited to participate and to be involved and were connected with. So a greater number of people have ownership over it, and a greater number of people are invested in its success. And as Claudina from the LACA said, the Latin American Association, the people of Brisbane were invited to the party.
This has given us an opportunity to present the Latin American community, the Spanish-speaking community.
There has been a lot of us who have been dreaming about putting this festival together, and now we would like you to smile with us.
Every one of those people we brought on board at a local level, they had a Facebook page, or they had a Instagram account, or they had, you know, were out on Twitter. So they were talking about themselves, their art form, their level of excitement, their pride.
The G20 Cultural Program raised the profile of dance in Brisbane and has provided more opportunities of new business and new ways to do things and new partnerships.
We wouldn't have been able to pull this together unless there had been a large body of work and people who'd been working for, you know, sort of 10, 20 plus years.
I think our project built on a whole lot of community arts and cultural development that had gone before. I think it built on a whole lot of the work that small to medium companies had done in engaging communities over many, many years.
There's so much positive stuff you could do in suburban areas which they don't see a lot of arts and cultural stuff, and this is an arts and cultural activity. But the music program included 52 events over 3 weeks, and a huge number of artists, a lot of local producers, and a lot of other people who are a necessary part of all of that, so a lot of technical staff.
It's quite impressive how everything came together, and also the city is putting on the best lighting show every night, which is fantastic.
I think that it was particularly timely given that the Gold Coast has the 2018 Commonwealth Games, so for organisers there and for people there to go, well, there is a cracking lot of stuff happening in the city, so we don't need to go to Sydney and Melbourne. I mean, not that, I don't think you should never do that, but I do think that that was a major outcome.
What we did do worked well, but it was ambitious, and the timeframes were too short.
Significant resources and support are needed if you're going to be able to deliver something like this again in the future.
I definitely think it's scalable, and I definitely think it's replicatable. The model's still pretty open, it's very much network based. So it would rely pretty heavily on connecting with a producer or a series of producers who do have those networks. Otherwise, obviously you're starting from scratch, and that's hard.
Look at the people that have got proven track records of achieving those goals, making it happen for your community. Just don't put somebody in there that may not have no idea and hasn't got that community knowledge.
Not just make it slick and sexy, but add that substance. And everyone does want to see the substance. Everyone enjoys it. That's what actually makes you connect.
It's really important that in terms of the planning, that Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people are consulted, a bit more lead time, and that it's done properly, and it's a meaningful outcome at the end.
People will attempt to do something in the same way and it won't work because they haven't taken the sector along, or they've just cherry-picked ideas out and haven't realised that it was actually a program, and it was, even though it was, was pretty big and it was pretty fast, there was a great deal of thought that went into, how each was structured and how things connected to each other.
We ensured that as many arts and cultural workers as we could track down got employment through this particular program. It made people sit up and notice. I think it made people sit up and notice the arts in a way that perhaps they'd never noticed before.
I think Expo 88 was such a burst-out moment for us as a city. And it really created a culture within our citizens of expecting performance to happen in public spaces, which I think has sort of gone into dream time a little bit for a while, and hopefully this will start to re-engage those people in going, gosh, we can actually do really fun, cool things. It's wonderful for the cultural vivacity of a city that is really growing very, very fast.
I think the legacy is a can-do attitude that shows the world and shows the people of Brisbane that we can do this, better than anyone, or as good as anyone. You don't have to go and travel to Montreal or Sydney or, we can have an amazing cultural celebration.
I think the Premier's press release that went out at the very start was, this is going to be like Expo, this is going to be like, the Commonwealth Games, this is going to change the face of Brisbane. And I must admit, in hearing all of that and thinking, we got $10 million, Expo had 6 months to run, had 5 years to plan, and had billions of dollars to spend. We've got a couple of months and we've got a very small team and not a lot of time, and I really believe that what's been achieved, and I think it's been achieved because both Jono and I decided there was a role here to trust the people of Brisbane that they could actually step up and know and understand what was going on. So in a lighting sense, they participated by saying they want to change the colours of the city. In a community engagement sense, they wanted to take part in workshops. They wanted to do things that were about skill development and capacity building. They wanted to participate.